All right, I am here with my guy, Peter Schroeder. Peter, very nice for you to join me.
Good to meet you. Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about this conversation. You have a really interesting background. You're a relatively young guy. You're the founder and CEO of Telzio, but this is almost like a second career of sorts for you, right? You spent a decade or more. I mean, really, since you were, God, a little kid in the music industry in Denmark, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even say second. I feel like I've been around doing so many different things. I actually had a colleague come up to me here the other day and said, "Hey, Peter, you've really lived many lives, huh?" And I was kind of reflected on that. And yeah, I've just done so many things already. I'm only 39, and I feel like I've probably been through more careers and done different things than most people do their whole life. So I'm blessed, like to be able to do all these things. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and some of the stuff, at least from what I read about your background, like it's like fascinating, right? I mean, like, you're talking like 14 years old building things that are taken off. I mean, you hosted a radio show when you were, as an early teenager. Like how does that stuff even happen?
Um, that's a good question. I have always been just doing a lot of different things. Growing up in the 90s, uh, there wasn't a name for people like me, and I didn't find out that there was until a few years ago. But it's called ADD, right? I have a lot of stuff going on all the time, and I was always told by teachers, or my parents were told at parent-teacher conferences that, yeah, he's really good in school, but only at the things he's interested in.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point I stopped doing homework because that was just easy enough to just wing it, and I was just interested in so many different things. I got a computer from my parents when I was 6 years old, and my grandfather was a telephone technician, my other grandfather was an electrician, and my mom was an engineer and a pianist, and my dad was a musician. So it's like this crazy turmoil of creative people and technical people all around me all the time, and that kind of just like spun me in all those directions at the same time. So I started really early on making little videos with some friends, and that was picked up by a local newspaper. They wrote a little story about it, and that was picked up by a regional radio station, which was then later picked up by the national radio. And from there on, I all of a sudden became this, like, and we're talking like when I was maybe 12, 11 years old, I think. All of a sudden, I was a reporter for national radio kids show and traveling all over the country interviewing other kids, and from there on became a reporter for a TV show in the same network, and went on to be a guest on basically Saturday nights primetime talk show, 8 o'clock on the national station, just about me. I mean, it was just a matter of like a lot of different things that just happened, and I just liked it because, hey, there's stuff going on, and at the same time, doing all these media things and being all into that, I was really interested in computers, so I started, doing that as well. So I feel like I've lived two very different careers simultaneously my whole life.
Yeah. I mean, I got to think your parents must have been a big help through this process, right? To be able to foster this creativity that you had as a young kid.
Yeah, I mean, so I grew up with a single mother and an only child, and she definitely encouraged me as much as possible, and really, like, did what she could. We didn't have a lot at all. I mean, we weren't like poor. You can't really be poor in Denmark, but we definitely didn't have a lot. So she just did what she could, and I never felt anything was missing. But being who she was, where she was. I mean, when she was 16, she was so good at playing piano that she was asked to join the local symphony orchestra. But my grandfather wouldn't allow her because she needed a real education. So she went out, became an engineer. So she has that, like, both sides, to it as well. And she was really, good at just like letting me do all these things. But at the same time, I know she was also kind of, I know when it started, when I was asked to be on as the primary guest on the main talk show of the country. That's where she was like really debating whether or not she should let me do that. I think she did a good job on keeping both ends, right? Keeping it balanced.
Well, I get that, right? It's like, do you want your kid to become like a child star, right? I mean, there's a lot of baggage that comes along with that.
Exactly.
So, did you just, it sounds like you were not necessarily great at school. You were more interested in what you were interested in. Like, did you stay in school? Like how do you, how are you a guest on the biggest talk show? I mean, I'm assuming that's probably like the equivalent of being on, Jay Leno in the 90s or something like that. And then just like go to your middle school, like just hang out with your friends.
Well, so that again, I gotta thank my mom for that, because she allowed me to be on that show under the one condition. And the backstory is I grew up in the northern part of Denmark, in the middle of nowhere. Never been to Copenhagen, where the TV stations and all those things are happening, and neither had any of my friends. So she said, "Well, yeah, you can go do it if that TV network will pay for the entire class to go." So they did, and they transported 20 kids and teachers and paid for hotel and everything for the whole class, and they went in and joined. As audience, and got tours of the TV networks and all that stuff. So she was really good at making sure I stayed grounded while still being allowed to do all these different things. And then later on, when I was kind of overdoing the whole radio thing, and I wanted to play more with computers. That was when I was like maybe 14, I think. I started creating a website and doing all that stuff. So that kind of like became most of my teenage years, along with making music. And I wasn't really that much in the media anymore, but doing, basically preparing for the whole IT part of my life, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, 14, so you're talking 25 years ago. I mean, even building a website back then was like a monumental task. Like it isn't like it is today. Right.
It was fun though. I mean, I was 14, and so you're just like doing it, just out of sheer interest. It was an artist community, because I had a couple of friends who were really good at drawing and painting. I can't draw at all, but they were really good at it, and I was like, okay, yeah, people should see that on the internet, because internet is fun. So I created this little page where we posted their stuff, and all of a sudden, other people asked, like, hey, can we also? And they started emailing me their pictures and stuff, and I posted it there, and started, looking into how do you actually code a real website, and I ended up making this community where people could upload their stuff and get, feedback, and that was like when I was like in my 14 to 18. But at the same time, I never had any interest in the subject. Really not interested in painting and drawing. So at some point, I kind of was over it and ended up selling that site because I was all of a sudden more into DJing and making music. But hey, I was 17, 18 years old. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about stuff like that, and it's you're talking about pre-Reddit and all these big sites that are like household names like they are today, and you're kind of at the forefront of it. It's funny to think that's it could have been the next whatever $100 billion company. You just never know. So let's talk about the DJing part of it. That's pretty interesting, pretty interesting part of life. I mean, you spent the better part of your 20s really in the music industry, right?
I did. I started on early as well, playing piano and all that stuff when I was a kid. And my dad was a musician. So my whole childhood, every weekend, my mom and I were alone home, and he was out playing different places. And I sometimes came out, saw them put up their instruments, his band and all that stuff in the afternoon, and then went home. So I had this whole exposure to that industry from very early on. And when I don't know exactly how old I was, but I remember exactly the time where I saw a little mobile DJ set up at my school for like a school dance, and I was like, that is what I want to do. Like there was no doubt. Like it was just like it was, and it was probably in third grade or something. And from there on, I started, just DJing at my friends' birthday parties with two ghetto blasters and some cassette tapes, and borrowing some light stuff from my dad's band, and from there on, bigger parties and getting a little bit more gear. And then when I was 17, I'd done that quite a bit, and all of a sudden at the local bar at where I grew up, they needed a DJ a Saturday night because the local guy was sick, and I was asked, and I came in there, and I think I was maybe a few weeks before I was 18. In Denmark, you have to be 18 to even be at a nightclub.
Sure.
But I was asked, to come and DJ, and that went really well. And from there on, I basically started playing every single Friday, Saturday, and just kind of grinded my way up for many years. And then, eventually I started really getting that interested of making the music myself. In Europe back then, it was electronic music. I guess it still is, but kind of grew up with electronic music, and that was when the internet has started to really become a thing in the early 2000s, and there was like communities for producers and songwriters. So I linked up with a couple of guys online, and we started making some music, and all of a sudden we had our first band, and before you know it, I was on tour in Germany and had hits. It went really fast all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, EDM nowadays is absolutely huge. I mean, I guess it was pretty big back then as well, especially in Europe. I would assume having a creative background and sort of, coming from a family of musicians, you had a little bit of that natural talent, and then the technical background was such a big part of it. So it probably gave you a little bit of a leg up. I mean, being a DJ, just, and I'm picturing, some of the bigger shows out there, that's got to be quite the rush, right? Standing in front of these huge groups of thousands, if not tens of thousands of people, and, sort of controlling the flow of the party in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, so that's the interesting part for me. And yes, you're right. Absolutely. It's fun. And I miss it. For me, I feel like there's a difference between the old school DJs, as I call them, my generation, that kind of started out when a DJ wasn't necessarily an act by itself. It was just a guy that was at a club DJing, playing. Now is it by itself is an act. It's an artist, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And a lot of the DJs out there today are not even DJs. They're producers and songwriters who end up DJing because that's how you perform that music today, and that's how you make the money. But I was in it for a very different reason than most of the kids you see today, and from that whole industry. And I'm not hating on them at all or anything like that, because it's just things have changed. Everything always changes. But my generation, and especially the way I kind of approached this, was I just like making people happy. I have this. Not necessarily just making people happy, but I like seeing happy people, and I like hosting a dinner party at home, making food for people. I love these I don't need the acknowledgement or the compliments. I just like to see people have a good time, and the best place to do that is really just as a DJ on a podium, seeing you play a good song and people go bonkers, and that gives me a rush. It's also why I never did drugs or anything like that, even though that was all around me. I never touched it because I one thing why I was scared. I've seen bad stuff, but also I just didn't need it. I really just got this rush from just playing songs and seeing a club go nuts, and that drove me for a good decade. And then of course you have the bigger the gigs and the more people go crazy. But I will actually say, I get the same rush out of playing at a small nightclub with maybe 200 people as I do for 20,000 or even 100,000 people. I actually would prefer the smaller ones, because the 100,000 people,
more intimate, yeah.
Yeah, because you don't have any connection with people when there's that many. You don't see that. You can't feel your crowd. You can't make any different. You can't make any changes that change anything. No matter what you play, it's okay. It's not gonna make a difference if you play two different songs or whatever. Yeah.
Do you? You got a pretty busy life right now, managing Telzio and running that company and trying to grow that company. Is that still something you do? Do you go out on weekends and we'll book a gig and DJ in front of a couple hundred people?
I wish I haven't done it for some time. I actually miss it. I do sometimes. Actually, so we're seeing each other right now on video here, and you can see behind me I have my turntables in my office.
Okay. Yeah.
And I still buy records, but sometimes for happy hour on Fridays I do it here at the office, and I have a couple of my old DJ colleagues come up here and hang out. But I haven't played a professional gig for quite some time, and. Maybe I didn't. I wouldn't even say that I've completely left it. It's just on pause.
Yeah, I mean, you never leave it. I was watching some documentary or some show on Netflix on Shaquille O'Neal, the basketball player, and he got into DJing and started to do these clubs and all these different types of things. And he's just like, listen, man, he's like, I was, starting center for the Lakers and one of the all-time greats, playing in front of, however many thousands of people. He's like, the only thing I can do that gives me anywhere near the rush I had when I was playing basketball is DJing. He's like, I do it for the rush. I just, which is, I get that. Like there's things we all do early in our lives that it's really hard to replicate when you get grown up and you got responsibilities and, managing teams and people and all those types of things. So when did you come out here? When did you leave Denmark?
2012, actually May 1st. No, sorry, 2013, May 1st, 2013. So 10 years pretty much on the dot.
Yeah. And you started Telzio there, or did you start it when you get out here?
Yeah, so in 2012, I was kind of at the peak of my career DJ-wise. I was on tour with a big pop star in Denmark that I was also producing, and at the same time, I was playing gigs in my own name, and I was traveling a lot to Las Vegas. That was right when EDM became a term, and when the big clubs in Vegas started popping up. I'm talking like the big 10,000 capacity people clubs, and having that decade experience of playing EDM before that was even a thing, I was hot in Vegas. I could get really cool gigs very easily. So I started coming out here a lot, and I played a lot of gigs in Europe as well at the same time. So I was constantly traveling. I would sometimes play 2 gigs with on festivals with this pop star guy, and then in the evening play 2 or 3 gigs at different nightclubs in one night. So like 4 or 5 gigs in a day. So in 1 year I ended up doing 380 gigs.
Wow.
And that's insane. I mean, no one can do that. I think main reason was my mom passed away in 2011, so November. So basically the winter before the summer of 2012, and that kind of just like set me into this work mode. Like, let's just do everything, because there's not really anything keeping me. Like, she was the one that kind of like kept me back in Denmark and stuff. So I was just like taking on everything I could, and I was definitely getting burned out. So on a gig in August 2012, I met my wife, my now wife, on a gig in Vegas. She was out there visiting a common friend of ours, and she's from California. So I went back to Denmark. We just hung out one night and added each other on Facebook, started chatting a little bit there, and she ended up taking a one-way ticket to Denmark in the fall of 2012, and just to hang out. And that was right after I was finishing up our fall tour, and I had just asked my manager, hey, let's put a pause on booking more gigs for now, because I was falling behind on creating new music. So if you don't create new music, especially in that industry, especially in EDM, all the time, then you definitely become irrelevant really fast. And having this ADD brain of mine, I can't do what a lot of my colleagues are, like, where they make music on their laptop in the hotel. They just do everywhere. They just have headphones, and I can't do that. I have to have everything perfectly installed, neat and tidy, and be in the mindset. So while traveling all over the place, I couldn't do that. So I hadn't made anything real productive for half a year. So I asked him, like, hey, let's put a pause on it for a little bit. Let me just regroup myself. And she came over. She ended up staying for 3 months. And while she was there, we started working on, I was actually doing another project. I needed a phone system. I couldn't find anything good, so I just started coding it myself, and started tinkling with that idea. And by the time, I think we're in maybe January 2013, I had like some concepts of what's now Telzio in my head and like a little bit of idea. So she, her tourist visa ran out. I put all my stuff in storage. I decided, hey, let me come hang out with you in the US instead because the weather is better. And there's probably more opportunity of DJing and making music. I was already kind of at my peak in Denmark. So let me move there. I have that and I can get an O1 visa, like an artist visa, because of my background. So I'll apply for that, put my stuff in storage, and I was just waiting for this visa. It ended up taking 3 months, where I was hanging out on my dad's couch. And while I was doing that, I coded Telzio. So when I came over in May 2013, I had like a minimum viable product demo kind of thing. And my wife had experience. She studied entrepreneurship and had some experience working for some different companies and running a business. So she kind of said, well, let's try. Why not? And she's been taking care of kind of the business side of things, and I've been doing the product and development ever since. And now, hey, we're 10 years in and still doing it.
Yeah. So what? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I probably hear about things just like a lot of normal people, and you hear about these big shows in Vegas and how much money the Diplos and the Tiestos and these guys are making with these residents. I'm assuming you're making pretty good money, right? Like they're flying you around, you're going to Vegas. Now you kind of put this whole money making thing on pause, and you decide, all right, now it's time to start a new software company from the ground up. I mean, tell me a little bit about how you manage that. Did you just have enough money booked away, or did you go out and get investors, or?
Yeah, that's interesting. No, we didn't have money booked away, and you only really make the big bucks if you're the big G's. Otherwise, you get flight tickets and hotels and things like that, and then you make enough to sustain. But I didn't have anything saved up at all. We cashed in my wife's 401k, and I took some consulting jobs here and there for the first year, 2 years maybe. And then we got a little bit of friends and family investments, like less than 200,000 over the first couple of years. And then we basically just bootstrapped it. We focused. So the thing is, we never actually focused so much on sales, marketing, and revenue for a long time. It was more just about creating that awesome product that everyone loves, and then we'll figure that other part out later. And that has taken us a long time. I mean, that's taken pretty much until the last couple of years now that we are actually starting to focus a lot more on that. But we never spent any money on advertising or anything like that. We literally just did good SEO and built a cool product. And that has always kind of been the mantra. And then, sales and all that stuff has come later. But yeah, it was hard for a few years. Of course it was. We lived off of nothing. But it's worth it. We still own most of the company, and yeah.
Yeah, you can see that care of the design in the UX. It's very elegant, very well thought out, very intuitive. I'm assuming that's a little bit of your nature as well, right? As a creator, someone who's kind of created their whole life. What was the initial inspiration? Like what made you choose unified communication? Like what could have been anything, right?
Right. I have always had some kind of fascination for telephones for some reason. My grandfather was a telephone technician, so he brought, when I was really young, he brought old phones and faxes and all kinds of stuff home for me to play with. So I've always had this weird fascination for phones. And then what really sparked it, got me started on, was really just that I needed a phone system for another project, and there wasn't anything out of the box that was easy to just set up. So I just coded a little, interface so I could easily manage it, at least for my own project. And I was like, this is actually fun. Maybe people could use this. So that was really it. And yeah, thank you for the design and all that. I definitely, I'm very much into design, and I have this mantra that you have to package things so it looks as good as it is. you buy an Apple and Apple computer, and it's absolutely an amazing machine, but it's also wrapped really nicely. Their stores are nice, so you got to make sure that things are up to par. And so design has always been really important for me. And actually, you asked me earlier, about school. I ended up going first year of gymnasium, which is like I guess 12th grade in the U.S., and studied. There's 2 lines, math and language, and I absolutely suck at math. So I chose language, and I was the only guy with 40 girls. And that sounds great when you're 18, right? Only guy there. In theory, but it's not cool when those guys, like those girls, are all like 17, 18-year-old teenagers who hate each other. So you're just sitting there in the middle. So I was there for a year. I couldn't, and I was over school, and I had ADD, and I couldn't, focus on more of that. So I dropped out of that. But my mom insisted that I should have an education. So I ended up doing graphic design and going for that for 1 year in school and 3 years apprenticeship. So, there's certain things in life that you know a lot about that you have absolutely no interest in. One of the things for me is horses, because I ended up being an apprentice at a horse magazine. So I know a lot of things about horses for some reason, but have no interest in. But I'm really happy that I got through that, and that was while I was touring with music as well, so I could do both things. And I had a boss that was really large with letting me off when I needed to play in places and travel and stuff like that. So that was cool.
Yeah. How far were you able to get coding, the early versions of Telzio before you had to bring in an engineering team to support you?
Well, we don't really have an engineering team. We are just 3 guys. I'm still coding 80% of my day today.
Really?
I love coding. I love the product part. I love the engineering aspect, because there's a lot of challenging doing telecom in general. It's not easy to scale, and it's not easy to make sure it doesn't go down and it sounds good on every single call. So there's a lot of challenges, which really is fun to me, and so I really don't want to be without that, and I want to be very involved. I hate managing people, worst thing ever. So I just want people around me who I can say, hey, I have an idea, let's build this, and I want people who understand what I'm babbling about, and then just go do it instead of me having to manage anything. So I've been able, through a lot of grind, to now put together a team of very few people, less than 20, that can, that are absolutely rock stars. Like, they're amazing, doing, like, everyone's the best of the best. And that's also how we can compete with multi-billion dollar public companies, and actually win over them. You just have the best guys that, are really good at their things. But I wouldn't be without, being involved. I don't want to be a manager if you.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like, outside of the management part, I would assume a big part of what you do is setting the vision, setting the culture, setting the values of the company, and then you put the people in the right position and let them go, right?
Exactly. I mean, the more I can let, as an entrepreneur, I think all entrepreneurs kind of have this they know the feeling that it's hard to let go, and it's hard to let other people do stuff completely autonomously. That's a challenge. But when you find those right people that just keep impressing you over and over, and I mean, then it's easy. And then it's just like I have almost blind trust in my guys. We meet every morning. I mean, we're a very small team in LA, but like 2/3 are remote, both in the US and in Denmark. So we meet every morning on Zoom and talk through what's going on. But besides that, everyone has their own products. We don't even really do a lot of project management because things just get done, and it gets done way before I even ask people to do stuff. But it's hard to find those people. That's the biggest challenge. Yeah.
It is. So you guys do like a morning huddle, kind of like your morning scrum meeting. How else do you guys plan? Are you guys planning on a monthly basis, quarterly basis? I mean, do you set like large scale objectives for the company, or those types of things?
Yeah. So I mostly take care of product, customer service, or the support part of things, and DevOps, and making sure that the product actually runs the platform once, and that we get our development done, and set the vision for it, and I have like a long-term roadmap. I try to use Whimsical, which is, by the way, an amazing tool. I want to plug for anyone. Yeah, I use that all the time, drawing out my ideas. And then we, have a short-term roadmap, which is really just a bunch of virtual post-its of what needs to get done now, and then the features that we are gonna build and what needs to be done in which order for that to happen. And that's really it on the developments, on engineering side of things. Then on marketing and sales, where my wife is that she's running, they definitely are more planning different things, and they're a little bit more structured than that. That's also the department that we're really expanding on right now, and hiring a lot in, and where the biggest growth is going to be over the next year. But that's the whole thing. I can't really talk too much about. I don't want to get involved, and also that's the thing. Being a couple running a business like that, we try to really set boundaries for not stepping on each other's toes, and trying to keep things separate, because obviously that can be hard. Something we definitely had to learn over the years.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting. I have some personal friends who run a very successful company, and they run it jointly. She's like kind of the BD, she's CEO on paper, runs that side of it, and he's the ops guy that sits back behind the scenes and makes all the things happen. And they're a great couple. But me and my wife look at each other and we're just like, I think we would kill each other. Like, because you have your, one of the things that's kind of like in life, I think, is you have your work life, and then you just want to like sometimes disconnect, right? And then it's like, let's talk about something that's completely unrelated. I don't even want to talk about my day, but I think it's really hard when your days are so intertwined as is, right?
Yeah, I'd say my wife is definitely the one that's good at reminding me. We have a rule that we don't talk business at home, like or at least try to, as much as possible. We really try to not, or she tries to remind me not to talk business at home. But that's a good thing, because that really is something you need. You need to be able to just keep that distance, and it is tough. I'm not gonna lie about that. It's something we've had to learn. We're really good at it now, but it's definitely something that we've, as a couple, had to learn over the years to keep that separate. And also, because we can also get heated, at work, on certain things that we usually are pretty good at agreeing on things and see things the same way. But sometimes there are certain things, and you have to be able to leave that and say that's a work thing. That's of course that's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're looking at some, like AI right now, it's without a doubt the hottest thing in technology. I'm a big, I guess, advocate of just how big this platform really is, and how much innovation is going to come from it. How do you guys look at it within your own product roadmap? I mean, you run the product side of this. I think it's going to, impact most businesses, and the businesses that it may not impact are going to at least look at how they can potentially leverage this new technology. What are you guys looking at?
Well, let me start. Like, we registered AIattendant.com back in 2017 because we knew this was coming. Mm-hmm. We knew where things were going, and we've been preparing for it since 2017, literally like shaping our infrastructure, our backend, to create a product where at some point the technology is going to be ready, and then we need to have a product that leverages it. And that happened now a couple of months ago, and we've been working hard on getting that integrated. And within the next few months, we're going to have a product that's essentially ChatGPT meets any communication source or channel that you would want as a business, and be able to basically talk to your callers or whoever texts you or tweets you or whatever, in your business's own language, just as if it was your best employee that has been with you for 10 years, because that one is trained on your customer data or your historical conversations with your customers and all that stuff. So we've been working on that for a long time, and we definitely saw it coming. and it's gonna change everything. I kind of compare it to what happened in the late 90s, early 2000s, when things went from phone service, cable, copper cables in and analog phone service over to VoIP. That was a big shift.
Right.
That shift is happening again, but it's just way bigger than before. Like the whole communications service industry that we are in is going to see a lot of change, and we're going to see some of those big players that are multi-billion ones today. They might go to zero in a very short time, and then you'll see other players, smaller ones like us, that will go up and become the new ones, just like it did in the early 2000s.
Yeah. I just thinking as we're talking about this, you not only have the chat GPT side of it, which is going to definitely automate, text-based customer support, but now you have all these different voice modulators, right? These ways to create, essentially artificial voice. I mean, you could automate conversations probably at some point, right?
That is basically what we're doing, and the fun part is that the voice modulation thing is so good today, and it's all based on open source data created by a bunch of different universities around the globe that anyone can basically get. So the ones that we created ourselves is just based on a bunch of open source data. Sounds amazing, and you can't tell the difference. And we can generate those ones in less than 100 milliseconds, 80 milliseconds. We can generate a whole sentence. So we can create, conversational style dialogues with someone, on the fly, like, because it's so fast at not only finding out what the answer is going to be, but also generating the actual voice that you're going to hear back. That now you don't have that thing you experienced today when you call CVS or something and say like, hey, in a few words, tell me what you're calling about, and then you say something and it says tiki 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 for 5 seconds. That thing is gone. Like it's instant, and we actually have to kind of invent artificial breaks before we play back the answer, because it just sounds kind of annoying. It's almost like that the AI is interrupting you, because the second you're done talking, he has the answer. Yeah,
it's too fast. You got to humanize it a little bit. Like
exactly.
Make there be a pause. Throw in some ahs and ums.
Exactly.
And all those things. Yeah. So, do you see that as one of the ways that you're able to compete against some of the, like you said, the billion-dollar players in the space? Your ability to just innovate faster and get to market quicker and be able to take bigger risks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a couple of things, and again that kind of hooks into how we've been running the company for the past 10 years. Is we've been development first, meaning that we own our entire stack. We wrote the whole platform from ground up. We are not licensing any third party hardware or software like all our competitors are. Everyone else in our industry is based off of something that someone slaps a UI on top of. So because we own everything, we wrote everything, and it's the same little handful of guys that wrote all the code and knows it in and out, it's really fast for us to add new stuff and innovate. And that's definitely our advantage, because we are now at a point where we have a platform that is at least as good as our competitors, the big ones. We haven't had downtime since 2016. Everything just works, sounds great. So we have this like really solid core that is at least as good as everyone else. And now we just slap this this AI stuff on top of it that we have been preparing for the past many years now, 3, 4, 5 years. So we are already ahead, and that definitely gives us that edge and the like a stepping stone to definitely compete with them without even trying almost.
Yeah, that's impressive. I consulted for a company a few years ago, and they were in the unified communication space. They did a lot of work with healthcare, a bunch of APIs integrated with medical record systems, so that when you would call, it would kind of automatically populate all their contact and all that. But they were, as you said, built upon another essentially platform. And your innovation went as far as the innovation of the platform, right? It was all API based, and it was like, hey, we just released this. Okay, great. We'll build a UX on top of that. So it's interesting that you guys built the entire platform from the ground up. That's impressive. That's a lot of hardcore engineering that goes into being able to make that happen.
A lot of code, a lot of hours. Yeah, it's but also fun. Like I said, it's a challenge, right? And that's why I do it. I always love solving problems, and again, ADD. I can really hone in on things. That's the superpower about having ADD.
Yeah.
Is you might be have a hard time focusing on doing your tax returns and those kind of things. But things you're interested in, I mean, I can spend a whole night after being at work all day, getting home, putting the kids to bed. Then I can spend another 5 hours all night until basically the alarm clock rings in the morning, reading documentation on some kind of topic. Yeah. I did that last night. I only slept an hour this morning because I ended up reading some documentation, and it's just it's definitely a superpower of that diagnosis, and that's definitely what goes into our product. We really hone in on things and making sure that it works. And we're not building anything, so we can just say, hey, we don't have to wait for someone to implement, like you say, add an API for something or add a new feature, or even better, like we don't have to wait for them to fix a bug. If something goes down and they have to send out a consultant or send a bug fix because there was a 0-day issue released recently, and now all your customer data is leaked because someone else screwed up in a different company, right? Security is super important for us, and the best way to do security is really just to have a full control over it yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you just mentioned the amount of time and effort, and kids and running a company. And I know you guys are past startup stage, but you're still in early growth stage. How do you? What do you do for self-care? Like, how do you give yourself the energy so that you can stay up 5 hours after taking care of all your life's responsibilities, reading documentation, wake up an hour later, jump on a phone call with me, and then probably have a full day of coding? Like,
yeah, I don't know. It's just I'm just so passionate about it that it doesn't even feel like work. It's really just I just can't not do it. Like I've never had a day where I've gotten out since we started this company where I'm like, oh no, I don't want to do this. I can't help it. I want to get out of the bed in the morning, and while we had twins a year ago, my wife and I, so that's obviously a big one on top of it, and they're at the age now where they're running around and starting to talk a little bit, and seeing my son crying when I leave in the morning. That's of course that's hard. But I try to at least spend the weekends with them and not do as much work as possible on the weekends. But the weekdays I definitely just full on. And we're lucky enough to have a baby room up here at our office that's dedicated for that. So my wife comes in a little later in the day with them, and we have a nanny and to help and all that stuff. So we see them; they're around. But yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's tough. It is.
Do you do any type of like meditation, or do you work out, or anything that kind of helps you just clear your mind and create energy for yourself?
So I mean, obviously I sit in front of my computer for 14 hours at least a day, and I only get up to go to the bathroom. Really, I actually have my team come in here and they have this meal kit service that they subscribe for me, that they put like a plate of food in front of me. Otherwise, I forget to eat. Unbelievable. So I'm really bad at that kind of stuff. When I first start getting in the zone, I forget everything. So I walk to and from work. That's kind of my main thing. That gives me, and it's an hour each way. So in the morning from 7 to 8, I try to either take a bunch of phone calls or listen to podcasts and things like that from on my way to work. And then in the evening, depending on how late it gets, if it's after dark, I usually take an Uber home. But otherwise, I will walk home, and I really enjoy that decompressing. Sometimes I don't listen to anything at all. I'm just like completely, and that's meditation for me. Even though I'm walking through LA and there's cars and people shouting everywhere, it's still I need that. And of course I need to move. I mean, I'm definitely I'm almost 40, and I'm not in the shape I was when I was DJing 10 years ago. Let's just say it like that. So I definitely need that. But at the same time, I'm horrible at sports and those kind of things. I have this thing. I only do things I'm good at. That's also why I get really good at the things I do.
That's right.
But that also means that I don't do any things I'm bad at, and I'm not good at sports. I also get stressed by going. I've tried so many things. Going to a gym stresses me out because I'm at a standstill when I'm there. I'm even though I can rationalize that, hey, it's for your health and it's good and you should do it, and there's a reason why I do it. There's still that other side in the back of my head that I can't fight. That just keeps saying, hey, you're just standing here and you should be working. Like, you should be doing something productive, even though it is productive. But it's that's just how my brain works, and I just really get stressed about being in a gym. So there has to be some kind of purpose, which I've found in walking for 2 hours a day. Fast pace and getting that fresh morning air.
Well, you can think, right? Walking's also one of those things that's unbelievable at like allowing your brain to like free itself up, and you come up with great ideas. And I mean, I took a walk before our conversation today, and it just, it helps me. I don't know what it is. It's like there's no distraction of a cell phone. There's no distraction of a computer screen. There's nothing. And it just allows my mind to kind of go and start to think about things. And how do I want to have this conversation? And what do I want to talk about? And what do I find interesting? But I do that all the time. I do that with work. Anytime I have a tough problem or something that I need to solve, and I've kind of gotten to that point of like, I'm not getting anywhere continuing to do what I'm doing, I'll just take a little bit of walk. And most times I'll figure out the solution on that walk.
Totally. I used to do it before I started walking to work, and that's maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago now. But before that, it was always like the shower. That was my, where I got my ideas, where I got like the solutions for the things I was working on, and the same thing happens when I walk. Like it's literally that where sometimes I listen to a podcast and I have listened the whole episode and I don't remember anything from it because my mind just starts wandering, and I figure out solutions for certain things. And at the same time, especially on my morning walks, I a couple of times a week talk to my family back in Denmark because the time difference and all that, So
Sure.
And I don't have time to do that throughout my day. So that also kind of creates that little space where I can catch up with friends and family.
Nice. So what's next? I mean, we talked a little bit about the AI. What are some of the other exciting things that you guys are working on with Telzio?
Well, so the AI is definitely the main thing. We are releasing a new dashboard later this year that is kind of playing together with the whole AI thing, and that's something that we've been working on for a long time. We just released a new mobile app last year, which is built on a new API. Which the new dashboard is going to be built on as well. So we have this like coherent thing where we have a public API that all developers can use that like at the same time powers our mobile app and our desktop app. So there's like one main product, and that's something we've been working on for a long time. Like we literally like rewrote the whole backend to create this API, and then the mobile app, and now the new desktop app, which is gonna have the whole AI thing. So there's like a lot of we've worked on for a long time from a user point of view, from our customer point of view, might not seem like there's a lot that has happened over the past couple of years, except for the mobile app that we finally released. But we have done a lot of groundwork for the things that are about to come this year. That we're finally now at the things are coming together, and the new dashboard, also desktop app, which is like going to be the same. Working together with the AI things, it's basically a whole new product that we're launching later this year.
And did you build this on GPT, on GPT-3, GPT-4, or are you are the open source models you talked about?
Yeah, we're trying a couple of different things because we created it. The AI part of it is actually it's funny because the AI part is such a small piece of the puzzle of the whole the big scheme of what we're actually building. So for us, for us, the AI part is really just the part that takes a question and comes up with an answer. But there's so many other things that are
That's right.
way more complex and interesting that we've, for us to build and gonna be cool for the user, that we spend time on. So the AI things, we're trying out different things. We're trying ChatGPT, we're trying, other vendors, just to try out what happens. And we will probably not settle on a specific single one. We might, change back and forth. We might end up doing something ourselves if open source things are available, or maybe we'll change it over time. It's hard to say. But again, it's such a small piece of the puzzle that it's more like, that's not the important part for me, at least.
Yeah. So one last thing, I wrote this down before we jumped on this call, and I definitely wanted to ask you about it because I thought it was interesting. I read on your LinkedIn profile you do some mentorship for a organization called Defy Ventures, which is essentially you working with people who have criminal histories and looking at giving them kind of a second shot on life and entrepreneurship and all those things. I find that unbelievably fascinating. I'd just like to know a little bit more about the organization and what you do.
Yeah, so it was actually my wife that got us started with working with that organization. She had a friend when she was in high school who all of a sudden disappeared. It was just like not a friend; it was like someone in her circle, right? So she didn't really think of it until the first year I was in the U.S. With her, and we were at a dinner with some friends, and all of a sudden he was there, and found out that he had been in prison for some 10 years for a crime he never even committed. He was his parents, I guess the short story is his parents had got embezzled by a business partner, and he was a teenager and he was angry, and he was talking to a friend about going to teach this guy a lesson and like maybe bringing a gun to scare him, and that his friend then went to the cops, and the cops arrested him on conspiracy charges, and he did a plea deal and ended up in 10 years in prison. So his whole youth was essentially gone, and that whole thing is so freaking mind-boggling to me. It's coming from Denmark, it's such a different way of thinking. Like the incarceration system in the US is very much built for punishment, where what I'm used to is built for rehabilitation. So you have prisons without even walls. Like people can just walk away if they want, because it's not meant for punishing. It's meant for making sure that they get back into society. And the thing is, like, all these people who've been to prison, some for a crime they commit, granted, but also a lot of for even just a plea deal, not just for talking about a crime, right? It's mind-boggling that you can spend such a big portion of your life, and then once you get out and you're supposed to be cleaned, of your history, like you have served your sentence, you can't get a job, you can't do anything. So what this organization does is they go into prison and work with inmates who are about to get released within the next year or so, and teach them how to start a business themselves and become entrepreneurs. And then they bring in real entrepreneurs or existing entrepreneurs, I would rather say, from outside, who have businesses and have experience, as mentors, and to come in to mentor these inmates. So when they get out, they get off from a good start. And then once they're released, the mentorship keeps going, and help them get started. And it could also just be basic things. It doesn't even have to be starting a business. It could also be just making sure your LinkedIn is up to date and how you write a resume. You don't even they don't teach you that in school here in America, so everyone could learn that. But yeah, it's just such a fascinating project and our organization, and they in the prisons they do these Shark Tank pitch contests where the inmates can actually win some money to start that business, and it's just it's good because they can't get a job, so they got to create their own.
That's right.
And the ones
I had this conversation with my we were doing a remodel in our house, and the general contractor is from New Zealand. He's a New Zealander, and I'm obviously an entrepreneur. I work from home, and we're having this conversation, and he's asking about what I do, and I'm telling him, and he basically made this comment to the extent of like how in the U.S. there's not actually as much of a culture of entrepreneurship as you would think. A lot of people, because of the way, our health system's tied up, benefits are so tied up in our jobs, people like security. And what he essentially said is, what I've seen is it's people like myself who are immigrants or people who have no other choice that ended up starting their own companies. And that's how I started my first company in my early 20s. I couldn't get the job I wanted, so I made the job I wanted. So, it makes so much sense. You think about these, felons, these people, these criminal backgrounds who aren't going to get hired by Google. Like, it's never going to happen. Facebook isn't going to hire them.
Right.
But there is a huge opportunity for them if they're willing to put in the work and to start their own thing. So teaching them the skills of entrepreneurship just makes so much sense. It's a really fascinating organization.
And they're so thankful. I mean, it's so rewarding because they really are grateful that you got to remember that some of these people have been in there for 30 years. They, for the most of their lives, have never seen anyone care about them at all. Like there's no one who gives anything about who they are, what they do. That's how they've been for so long. So people coming in and actually caring about them and like caring about helping them is in itself so motivating for them that it's incredibly rewarding. And I would just recommend everyone to go check it out. And like you say, us being entrepreneurs, I mean, we are utterly unemployable, right? We were just I've never been happy in a regular job. I've always had to do it myself. It's just who we are, and you can say the same thing about them. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I appreciate it, man. Let's leave it there, Peter. Thanks for your time. This was a fascinating conversation.
Thank you so much for having me on. That was a lot of fun.
All right. I will go ahead and put all your links in the show notes. People want to reach out to you, websites, telzio.com, telzio.com. And appreciate it, man. We'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good one.